Fear Street Part 3, 1666, is the third and final part of the Fear Street trilogy that debuted a couple of weeks ago. This is once again directed by Lee Janiak, or Janiak, however you're supposed to say it, and it's once again based off of Fear Street, which is a book series by the one and the only R.L. Stine. R.L. Stine is a name that's synonymous with Goosebumps, at least it's synonymous with Goosebumps for me. If you haven't checked out Fear Street, you should definitely read some of those stories. They're pretty good. Once again, stars a lot of the same actors and actresses that you've seen in the other two films. They also come back, and some of them are playing different roles in this movie. The whole point of this movie is to show the origins of Sarah Fiers. You've heard Sarah Fiers' name for 2 movies now. And no spoilers, but if you get to the end of Part 2, 1978, this film ties into that one because it leads you into the past and it takes you back to 1666. That is where half of our story takes place, where we get to see Sarah Fiers, her life, the place that she lived, the townspeople that she was surrounded by, and you get to kind of see how the curse of Shadyside originated, how all of that got started. And then the second half of the movie takes you back to 1994, and it wraps up this trilogy because the main characters that were left in 1994 have to try to figure out a way to stop the Shadyside curse and stop the killers and end this whole thing once and for all. So I gotta say, the previews that I saw leading into 1666 made me really excited to see this movie. It looked interesting. It looked like it was gonna be the most horror-filled film of the entire trilogy. And I like the idea on its face. I like the idea that we're going back to 1666 and that we finally get to see an origin story basically for Sarah Fiers and the witch of Shadyside and the curse of Shadyside and all that stuff that we've seen hinted and teased in the other film. Kiana Madeira, I think is her name, she plays Dina in 1994. She plays Sarah Fiers in the past. While there doesn't appear to be a huge delineation between the two characters other than, you know, a few hundred years or so, I would say that she gave probably the best performance in the movie. Legit horror, some legit tension that is permeating this movie throughout. I do again want to single out the director for doing a great job at keeping the film well paced, keeping the tension up, giving us a lot of stuff to look forward to, a lot of mystery and discovery to be found throughout the storytelling here. There are legit moments of terror and trauma and tragedy in the first half of this movie that you probably can see coming, but at the same time, you're still invested in the story that they're telling in 1666. I will say there is a pretty interesting twist that the movie has that leads into the second half of the movie that caught me off guard. It's the one thing in this movie that I really didn't see coming. And as far as tying up all the narrative threads and all the stuff that happened in the other films, you want answers to certain things. You get answers on most of the questions that you may have had coming into this film. And that's the tough job that they have here, because they have to entertain you, but they also have to tell you a story that fills in the gaps, and they have to do it in a way that's not going to bore you, or it's not going to make you feel like you're not watching a horror movie. So there are definitely some epic horror moments in this film that do make you cheer for certain characters, that make you want to root for them to get out of the situation that they're in. It's hard to say which part of the movie is more interesting. 1666 has the most intrigue, and it's telling the origin, so that's where the most new information comes from. And then you get to the second half, and that's where most of the exciting shit actually happens. Shit goes down, the killers, and they're all trying to come up with a plot to take out these killers and to stop this curse. So that's probably the more entertaining part of the movie. This movie does have its fair share of problems though. One nitpick that I have is that when you're in 1666, a lot of the characters don't really feel like they're playing a different version of the characters that you've seen them play before. Like, you feel like you're transported into a new world. Obviously it's 1666 and townspeople and the scenery and the production, like it all looks different and it feels different in that way. But when it comes to the characters, when it comes to the actors and actresses, it feels like they're just playing medieval or older versions of the characters that you've already seen them play, and that was a little bit weird for me. This is accentuated by the fact that a lot of these actors and actresses have really shitty accents. Like, I'm not entirely sure who told them that these accents were gonna work, but these accents did not work. Also, that if you're a fan of the slasher style that has been established in the other two movies, this movie doesn't have nearly as much of that. There's not as much gore, there's not as much blood, there's not as much gruesome, awesome, epic kills that maybe you've gotten used to seeing in the other two films. This one focuses a little bit more on slow burn suspense and tension, and while I do like that choice, especially in 1666, because it's a very story-based reason for why they decided to go that direction, if you're more of a fan of the slasher movies, I feel like you might walk out of this film feeling a little bit disappointed. Usual in a horror movie like this, there are going to be cliches and tropes and characters doing dumb things, and there's going to be things that you saw coming from 1,000 miles away. In fact, you're going to see sequences laid out in front of your eyes that are very easy to see. The first half of this movie going into the second half, other than the twist, feels kind of predictable. But for a movie like this that's been unafraid to shed blood, it was just kind of weird that they just allowed some characters to just get away scot-free with some stuff. In fact, I don't even know which one is my favorite. I'm probably gonna give them all the same rating. Here's the same rating that I gave for the other two films. Fear Street Part 3, 1666, belongs in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Those are my thoughts on Fear Street Part 3. Tell me which one was your favorite of the Fear Street trilogy, and do you want to see more movies like this? Put that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.